Welcome back to the podcast. Today's episode is a playback of a Marketing with Meller session that I led, which is a member spotlight. Now, this is a new type of an event I'm doing inside my marketing, membership, and learning community where I ask for a volunteer member to be interviewed by me. And during that interview, I ask them about one of their products or services, and we get into some details about that. And then we open it up to the floor so that other members can ask questions as well. Now, Marketing with Meller is a private members community, but it is open to the public if you're interested in joining. I'll put the link inside show notes. And this is one of the perks of membership. You get to be interviewed by me, and I'm merchandising this around for Christopher. In today's show, you're going to hear about Christopher's new offering, which is a Zoom audit. And if you follow Christopher G. Johnson, you know he's really great in terms of sharing technical expertise, troubleshooting, and really understanding the questions to ask to solve the problems. He comes from a corporate IT background, and he's just got a really great sense of how to use LinkedIn effectively. So you're going to hear about his Zoom profile audit in the session. If you're interested in booking a session with him, I'm also going to drop his link below. He didn't know that I was going to mention that, but I don't think he'll mind. And with that said, now on to the podcast. Enjoy. Delighted to be here with all of you today. This is the very first time we're doing this as an event. This is a member spotlight for Marketing with Meller. As I'm recording this, it is Thursday, December 18th. And this is also going to be, in addition to being available in the member playback library for Marketing with Meller, we're going to be putting this on my podcast, which is called Enthusiastically Self-Employed. And today's session is like a 30-minute interview. And I said, what I'd like to do is interview members, and you get to pick one product or service we're going to talk about. I'm going to ask you some questions, and we'll talk for a bit, and then we'll open it up to our members to see if there's any questions from the group. And then this will be later converted to a podcast episode as well. So there's some additional visibility for you beyond the core program in here as well. So with that said, today's feature is Christopher Johnson. And Christopher, why don't we start with, if you could tell us a bit about yourself. So give us your 1 to 2 minute introduction. Tell us your name, your business, what do you do, who do you help?
All right. So Christopher Johnson, born and raised in Metro Detroit. The name of my company is Calm Clear Media. So my background, what I do, who I help, my start was in IT. I worked in IT for a few decades, enterprise systems for corporate 500 companies, helping them with their time and attendance. Now, although I'm working in IT, my undergraduate degree is actually in broadcast communications. So at the start of the pandemic, I was laid off from my IT job, and I was trying to, what can I do? And putting all the irons in the fire is like, all right, how do I use my IT background? And well, let's see, I still have that broadcast degree. Zoom is the intersection of people and technology, and I was off to the races. So who I help? Companies that struggle with the technology. So part of my background in IT, I was always the one, after we put the system in place, to train the users on how to use it, because technology can be befuddling and people get frustrated often. I have a calm demeanor, and I would say, all right, so here's what we're going to do. Here's how it works. Here's what you need to do every Friday to get your payroll done. And it was, it was always fun, energetic, enjoyable. People didn't dread as much the changes in technology because they knew they had somebody they could call and walk them through it all. And so now I just apply that to Zoom and virtual platforms.
So what I just love about your introduction is you just made me feel calmer. Just that simple introduction, the tone of your voice and your pacing. I tend to be a high energy person, go, 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 go. Now I do crash sometimes too, and that energy goes and dips, but I love that this calm demeanor, and then you've now worked this into the name of your business, which is it Calm Clear Communications or Calm Clear Media? What's the name of your business again?
So the LLC is Calm Clear Communications. Mm-hmm. I'm doing business as Calm Clear Media. Why? Because that's a shorter name to put on a business card or email address.
Yeah. Good point. Some of us have changed our business names and evolved it a bit over the years as well. So thank you for sharing that. All right, so we're going to jump right in. And again, if you're just joining us, this is a member spotlight. This will be no longer than 30 minutes in total. I'm going to ask Christopher about one of his products or services, and then I'll give our Marketing with Meller members the chance to ask any follow-up questions as well. So we'll plan on, maybe talking for the next 10 to 15 minutes, and then we'll open it up for some Q&A, if that sounds okay to everyone. So first, I want to start with in the pre-show. Christopher, you joined, I think it was about 10 minutes prior, and I was on maybe 5 minutes prior, or I don't know, but we were both on a few minutes beforehand, which I said, this is perfect because now I want to ask the question, what do you want to talk about today? And I said, you can pick one product or service. And what was the service that you described?
So a Zoom audit.
Wonderful. And I said, this is perfect because I've asked you questions about Zoom over the years as well. So give us an overview. What is a Zoom audit? And tell us a bit about why someone might need a Zoom audit from you.
All right. So many people put on Zoom meetings on a recurring basis. Hey, we have a quarterly meeting that's going to be on Zoom, and here's what we want to accomplish. So the reason put together the audit is because they run into the same problems on an ongoing basis because they're not addressed. Usually the conversation starts with, all right, so let's go over your run of show. And then I get the blank look. My what? Okay, so that's just the agenda of what you want to happen, not of the meeting itself, but from a technology standpoint, what happens when and who's responsible for what. So going over that and setting that up, things became less of it doesn't happen by chance. It happens by, this is what's supposed to happen on this meeting. So setting these things up in advance, giving people the clarity and guidance around, all right, who's going to do what when? Who's going to be sharing the slides? All right, let's make sure they have this. Okay, are you going to have a co-host? Okay, let's make sure that you can add a co-host. For some reason, some people don't have that feature enabled beforehand.
Interesting. So it all starts with when you're working with a person rather, on their Zoom audit, you're starting by asking that question, do you have a run of show? So what if you're on a call with someone and they say, no, I don't have a run of show? Then are you walking them through the process of helping them to create that as a part of the Zoom audit, or tell us about that?
So by the end of the call, they will have a good run of show, and we'll have gone over the settings on their Zoom so they can set themselves up for success. So this meeting right now that we're in, one of the things you did at the start is disable people from joining with a hot mic. Okay, that helps you. That helps the people in the audience because you don't want someone to join while they're in the middle of their Starbucks order. Unless they're buying for everybody, we really don't need to hear that. So by having that set up in advance, you're setting yourself up for success.
Mm-hmm. So you're going to help them walk through that process of setting up the run of show so that they can be successful going through the event. And is this Zoom audit, I feel like you've been doing this for years, probably unpaid, and many people should have been paying you for this service. And now you've come around to packaging this up as a service. But is that the case? Is this something you've been doing all along and now you're more merchandising or packaging it up? Or tell us about the history of this.
Pretty much, because that the initial client call, all right, let's talk about the meeting. Let's talk about who's going to do what when, and what's the purpose for the meeting. What does success look like at the end of your meeting? What do you want people to see, feel, and think after having attended the session? And what do you want to see, feel, and think after the session? What defines success? And so going through that conversation, and then it's like, all right, so let's talk about the run of show. And that led to the discussion, okay, let's structure how we're going to put this together. And sometimes it has been a case where after we go through that process, they think they're fine and they can do it themselves. And that's wonderful. Other times they see, oh, this might be a little bit more complex than I had originally intended. Will you run this for me? Sure. So it is finding the space where the client is comfortable.
Gotcha. And these people that are on these Zoom audits with you, is it an individual? Is it a team? Tell us about that.
Most of the time, it is a team. They
Mhm.
have a big, perhaps a conference coming up or a large meeting, and with lots of stakeholders. So there might be the person who's really going to run the meeting, as well as a few stakeholders involved, maybe department heads. So who's going to be sharing slides and when are they going to do it? So you might have three different departments and they're all going to need to share slides. Is it going to be one slide deck? And who's going to control that? Or do they each need to have their own slide deck and learn how to share the screen? So, walking them through that process and that decision process, people have varying levels of comfort with sharing the screen. Some people prefer for just one person to do it. What I coach them on in that case is let's see if we can avoid next slide, please.
Mm-hmm. I was almost like going to click the next slide because I was like, oh, he wants me to change the slide right now. When you said next slide, please, it's like, oh, I'm trained to think about that, but that's a brilliant technique. And is it always when people are booking these Zoom audits with you, is it in advance of an event, like a specific event, or is it I do a series of events and I want to be more effective and more seamless on Zoom? Maybe it's a combination.
It's a combination. Most of the time, there is a future event planned or a series of events that they have on a regular basis where they want to get rid of or remediate the problems that they've had in the past. Speakers not being able to share the slides correctly. This another statement that you really shouldn't hear in a well-run Zoom meeting. All right, I think you're seeing my slides. What are you seeing? Okay, the presenter should always know what is being presented.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of Enthusiastically Self-Employed. If you're looking to get a bigger slice of the LinkedIn pie, I'd like to give you a free resource to check out. It's my 15 tips for coaches and consultants checklist. Go to mellermarketing.com/the list. That's THELIST, and you can download your copy today. By doing so, I will give you some quick and easy tips to update your LinkedIn profile today to help to generate more leads for your coaching and consulting business. Again, that's mellermarketing.com/the list. I'm just typing this into the chat because I'm going to put some of these things in the show notes in the playback, like things that you should be avoiding. Next slide, please, or avoiding the question, are you seeing my slides?
Right.
So,
Practice beforehand, and then you know.
yeah, I like it. And is there anything, if somebody's thinking about getting a Zoom audit done with you, is there anything they need to do in preparation for coming into that session, or do they just show up that day?
Well, they should have an idea of what they want their session to be about. So, is it a future meeting? All right, we're going to have a big conference in June, and we want to start getting ready for that now. And, what's involved with that versus I do a monthly meeting on Zoom, and these are the problems I've had in the past. Can they be fixed? So I have an idea what they want fixed because the audit is there to show audit is not a bad word. Audit is there to show where the problems or potential problems are and what the remediation step is.
That's good. I like it. And we're gonna move into our audience Q&A in just a few minutes here. And I want to remind everyone this is a member spotlight interview where it's giving us the chance to learn more about a product or service from our members. So in this case, Christopher's talking about a Zoom audit. I do want to caution us because I think this could easily get into how do I do this in Zoom, which is now we're asking for free advice from Christopher. So I want the questions to focus more on learning more about the product or service so that if we come across someone who might need help with Zoom, we might be able to refer them to Christopher, or learning more about the specific product or service so that we have a general idea in case you yourself are thinking about learning into that, leaning into that as a possible option. And it's funny, Christopher, as you were talking, I was asking you earlier, is this for one person or for a team? I had a recent interaction where someone booked a power hour with me and they mentioned it was going to be them and two employees. And then I showed up on the Zoom and it was their Zoom. And there was one person, and then there's three persons, and then there was five, and then there was 10, and there was 15 on the session with us. And it made me think about, like, I didn't do my due diligence in confirming the number of attendees because it probably would have been a different level of package. In that vein, do you offer Zoom audits in a multiple package session if someone wants to do like a before and after event, or is this like a standalone, a single session? Is it an hour long? Is it 30 minutes? Tell us about that.
So it is a standalone. It's a 1 hour session, but I'm happy to customize based on the needs of the organization. But most of the time, a 1 hour session serves exactly what the client needs.
Very good. And if people are interested in booking a Zoom audit with you, what's the step do they need to take in the process? Do they go to your website? Do we email you? What's that look like?
So I have a link set up that will take you right to the Q&A so that you can answer a few questions, make a payment, and then we'll be off to the races in getting your audit scheduled.
Wonderful. Look at that. Got it. Did you have that at the ready in the chat so that when I asked the question, I didn't even see your hands move just now. It was like, did Zoom
You know,
detect that I was going to ask you that question or did you have it prepped?
the AI in Zoom is pretty good, but not quite that good. So one of the services I use is Text Expander, and I have a shortcut set up for the Zoom audit link.
Wonderful. That's great. And he has it inside the chat here. And by the way, if you're listening to this on the podcast later, I'm going to let you know that I will put the links into the show notes below. So if you're interested in scheduling a Zoom audit with Christopher, the first step is going to his Calendly, filling out the form there. And I love that you've referenced Text Expander. I use it like every single day for these little shortcuts and text snippets and things that I'm using on a regular basis as well. So let me think, is there anything else that we haven't already talked about that you think it's important for people to know as it relates to Zoom audit? For example, who might be a good fit for it? Who wouldn't be a good fit for it? What do you think?
So who would be a good fit? People or organizations that have a regularly scheduled meeting on Zoom or that are going to have a something different than the norm on Zoom, where it's going to be, hey, this is going to be our annual meeting as opposed to anything that we do throughout the year. So we have a larger audience, a more complicated run of show. So we want to make sure everything's ready for that. Who it's not for, I would say probably the smaller Zoom family gatherings. Hey, we want to get everyone together for Christmas and we're just going to be on Zoom. And can you give us an audit? I don't think an audit would best serve the holiday function. Just enjoy the Zoom connection and have fun.
That's interesting that you say that. And I also think about sometimes when I do like LinkedIn coaching for people, when I think about who's not a good fit. Like as your coach, I want to make sure that you're going to apply what I teach you and implement it right away. And for you also, it might be, who's not a good fit. Well, someone who's not going to implement your advice. Right? And I'm being a bit kind of like facetious on that, but I think you offer so much great advice. And I so appreciate that you're now charging for this advice because there's been so many years, so many sessions over the years that you've been on and you've been giving people this free advice. And I'm so happy to see that you're packaging this up because you bring such great value to everyone, Christopher. And thank you for being our first interview here today as well. What I'd like to do now is we're going to open the floor up to Marketing with Meller members to see if anyone has any questions about Christopher's Zoom audit service that you'd like to ask, or any other questions about his background, anything like that as well. So we're going to start with Pam Lippett.
So I just want to ask, and I put it in the chat, have you thought about doing a like Spitfire 30-minute program for a family member who's going to be doing a holiday stuff thing? Or I'm thinking of my book club, which is my old sorority sisters. And we've been doing this for 2 years, and we still spend the first 5 or 10 minutes with people saying, how do you do that? How do I swipe this? And a lot of it is Zoom on iPhones when people join from their iPhone or their tablet, which is a whole different animal.
It is. I had not thought about that, but I can see a use case for that. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I had a client recently that I was working with, Christopher, and she booked some power hours with me, and she was really tech challenged, I'll say. She was very experience rich. She had so many years of professional experience, but a lot of us, we didn't grow up with phone in hand, so technology can be a hurdle, a burden, if you will. And she was so apologetic. I was trying to help her to share her screen,
Ah,
share her LinkedIn profile on screen. And it was hard because I wasn't sitting next to her to be able to point. To your point, Pam, there might be some other offerings like a Zoom for beginners or navigating Zoom, getting the most out of it. In this particular call, we spent about 20 minutes. We finally were able to get the screen share to enable. And part of the reason was I was thinking she had Zoom up in the full screen and she had collapsed the video down and then she couldn't see, how you hover below and then the menu bar appears and she couldn't see that. So there might be some other standalone offerings in there as well. Now, Christopher, do you have like a YouTube channel or other like free resources where people can learn Zoom from you as well? Or tell us a little bit about that.
so I do have a newsletter. I've launched my newsletter on Ghost, and I put that out a few times a month and I answer Zoom questions. A recent question was about the use of music in Zoom. It's not a question of many people ask the question, how do I share music in Zoom? But the better question is why you share music in Zoom. So the why would be, well, you can use it as a signaling device. Hey, break time is about to end. We're about to resume our session. It can be that interstitial space while you give people an assignment. Hey, we're going to take the next 3 minutes to write down your answers to this question. Once we finish, then we'll break into groups and then we'll discuss it. So while you're writing, here's a little thinking music. So you can use music as a signaling device. That's more important. The purpose behind it is more important than the how to do it. Because if it's done incorrectly or wrong, then it's just a misuse of the technology.
Good point. And I've heard some people too, where if you're using commercial music in a business case, you want to be careful about that because that could be a violation of licensing. What I do is I find like instrumental, what's it called? Instrumental, non-commercial
Copyright
music.
free.
Thank you. Copyright free. I'm like, what's the name of it again? Finding that out on YouTube, I find is very helpful. But you do want to be careful about that, especially if you are using it for marketing your products or services. Then it's being used for commercial use, and you should be compensating, just like we should be compensating Christopher for his Zoom advice that we're getting from him. I did think of another question, but I did pull up the Calendly as well, which I think you do a really nice job of explaining what this service is. Calm, clear virtual event audit, 60 minutes. And he goes through on his Calendly page and clearly describes the service itself. I love that you're using Calendly for this and you can choose a date and time. You have this synced up with your calendar. And then I'm assuming at the time that I confirm you have payment. Yep. I just went to the next page just to test this out. So before they can even book it, payment is all set up on there. So was that difficult setting that up, Christopher, on Calendly, or was that a
Not at
pretty easy
all.
process?
Pretty easy. I'll say perhaps 10 minutes at most. And that just might be me waking up in the morning because, well, you have to wait for the coffee to kick in.
There you go. Annette in chat was just saying, are we supposed to be seeing this up on screen? I was looking off to the side window, so I'll just show you up on screen. So if you go to his scheduling link for the Zoom audit, again, I'll put it in show notes for those that are listening on the podcast. He does a great job of describing the service itself. And then once you select a date, you go to the form on the next page and then you fill out your information. And before you can lock it in on your calendar, you'll have to process the payment in there as well. So it's all kind of integrated with there. So really nicely done. Let me stop the screen share again. Does anyone else have any questions for Christopher? You can either use your raise hand function, or if you want to just type your question in chat. I think I might have seen a question from Mary Susan, and I need to scroll back through and find that. Did you see it, Christopher?
I did not, but I'll give you kudos for having the raise hand feature in the toolbar, so it makes it easy for people to find.
Yeah. I find it a little tricky sometimes, especially if you're doing like a screen share. Sometimes we can't see the raise hand right away. I've reverted to explaining to people if you see the raise hand below, you have a question, click on raise hand or just manually like wave your hand. Give them the old school way of physically raising their hand or using the technology in there, right? Mary Susan asks, aside from the audit, do you have other Zoom services?
Sure. So other Zoom services would include a running your virtual meeting. So that usually starts with a discussion about when it is, what the purpose is, and making sure that I'm available and lining up what you want to happen. So that in those cases, we develop a run-up show together. I execute it, and there are always contingency plans. You always talk about what happens if the speaker loses connectivity. What happens if, you know, the screen share, for whatever reason, is not working as desired? I always have a backup copy of the slides. So when a speaker loses connectivity or the ability to share their screen, or I've had a speaker experience a power outage and they were calling in on the phone, but because I had their slides, I was able to share them and no one knew that they were just on the phone.
That's smart. That's good to know. Now, I'm going to ask a follow-up question for Mary Susan, and I know you're not able to unmute Mary Susan, but you said your question again was, aside from the audit, do you have other Zoom services? Is there something that you're looking for help with Christopher on that wouldn't be a part of that Zoom audit? Meaning, is that you're saying, do you have other things for sale? Like, what are you looking for? What is the area of expertise that you're needing help with? Or, this might just be a curiosity, like what else do you have in terms of services? But sometimes I like to answer the question with a question. Like this is a technique that we do as consultants, right?
Sure.
Well, what are you really looking for here? Like, let's probe a little bit deeper into there.
So
So I see.
another,
Go
oh,
ahead.
so something I have done on occasion is author interviews. So authors write books and they need social proof for, to put out on social media. So I will conduct an interview with the author on Zoom and I'll give them the audio and video files and I'll record it in a variety of formats. So they have all of the footage that they need and they can use that as they desire on social media.
I see Mary Susan just typed in, I have basic Zoom experience. So is there more instruction on best practices? So maybe a side conversation might need to happen and see if there's some opportunity for a potential future offering in there as well, or some other Zoom instruction in there as well. All right, Christopher, I want to wrap up our discussion for today. And again, if people are interested in working with you, tell us again, how can we start that process of working with you on a Zoom audit?
So for the Zoom audit, you can go to the link that I've provided. It's a Calendly link that will take you through a series of questions, explain what the audit is, and then you can go ahead and schedule that. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn if you have a larger project that you would like some help running. And I'm happy to step in and help.
Wonderful. Thank you. And this was our very first member spotlight featuring Christopher Johnson talking about his service, which is a Zoom audit. And I just want to say thank you so much, Christopher, for sliding in. I think we originally had a different member and then we moved you into the space here. So really nicely done. And just want to thank you for being on today.
My pleasure, Brenda.
All right. And as we wrap up our conversation today, a couple things. First, I want to share our calendar of upcoming events with all of you. If you go to mellermarketing.com/join, that's the webpage where you can see. Oops, let me start my screen share here. Let's try that again. Okay, give me a thumbs up once you can see it up on screen. Is it coming up on screen? I'm seeing thumbs up. That's a good thing. All right, so if you go to mellermarketing.com/join, whether you're a member or not yet a member, you can see our list of upcoming events. We currently are doing at least 3 events every month. Some events I add more events in. This week, we also have our member office hours. So tomorrow, Friday, December 19th, we're doing an office hour from 1:15 to 2:15. Come in. It's a really great opportunity to introduce yourself, meet the other members of Marketing with Meller. If you have any problems that you're looking for help with from a marketing perspective or LinkedIn, it's a really great place to get some of those questions addressed, and also really great networking inside there. We're also doing in December, this is the first time I'm trying this, but we're going to do a viewing party. Now, I know many of you might be taking a break in December from work, but if you're still going through the end of the month, if you'd like to join us on Tuesday, December 30th from 11 a.m. to 12:30 Eastern, we're doing it in a 90-minute block. We're going to do a viewing party. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at a list of all master classes that I've offered to date in Marketing with Meller, and we'll take a vote on a master class to watch again. Maybe you missed it the first time because you hadn't joined when we first delivered it, or maybe it's a topic that's relevant to you and your business. So if you'd like to join us on Tuesday, December 30th, we'll look at the master classes together. We'll pick one, we'll take a vote on it. And then what I'm going to do is share my screen, hit play. We're all going to watch it together, just like we're going to the movies together. But then if you have a question, Pam might say, hey, I have a question. And I'll pause the video. We'll take Pam's question live, and then I'll play again. So that's why I've created a 90-minute block for a 1-hour masterclass essentially inside there. So you get the best of live along with the Q&A that'll be in there. In January, I'll be doing an open house event for Marketing with Meller on Wednesday, January 7th. On January 9th, which is the second Friday of the month, will be our office hours again. And then also in January, we're doing a master class, which you'll know is an educational session. That's going to be on refreshing your LinkedIn profile for 2026. Lots of conversations happening right now about the algorithm and things that are changing on the platform. Having an optimized profile is still relevant. And I want to make sure you're looking at yours once a year. So I'm going to go through and do my update. I'll give you a checklist so you can work on yours as well. On Tuesday, January 20th, we're going to do a roundtable discussion. We're going to look at everyone's rectangle that we have on Zoom here, and we're going to optimize our rectangles together. We'll talk about lighting. We're going to talk about what appears behind you. We're going to talk about your position to the camera, how close you are. We're going to talk about looking at the camera. All kinds of great things that will be coming in there. So that'll be on Tuesday, January 20th at 1 p.m. And then you can see the other events that are coming up in February in there as well. With that said, thank you all so much for joining here today. I'm going to stop the recording, but I will open up the Zoom if we want to do any other networking. You're my very last meeting of the day, and I like to offer this as a added bonus service for Marketing with Meller members. But let me go ahead and stop the recording, and then we can have our side chat now.